All right. Happy Friday afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another MSP Cyber Roundtable. We're super excited to have Richard and Braden here from SOCRadar today for a conversation about the dark web and how we could maybe use it positively. So that'll be an exciting conversation. It was a bunch of socks today. We're going to be talking about SOC 2, and we will be allowing for comments about red and white socks. Or socks with any types of, whatever on them, all on the table today. How are you guys doing?
I'm already lost in the sock fight, Zach.
Richard, tell me your favorite board game. Let's dive in.
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
That's safe with the
20 years since I played it, though.
Fond memories.
What about you, Braden?
Monopoly was never fun because I always lost. Risk was much more my style of game and still is today, especially the one where you can go to space.
I have distressing memories about both of those games. Like Monopoly, I don't even remember. I just remember it felt bad. And Risk, I just remember being so frustrated I could never finish the game before it got knocked over.
Risk around the holidays is a very dangerous thing to be playing. But I don't know. I'm very visual, and it's helped me kind of understand a lot about this world and how much it really takes to kind of push over the edge. You really have to go more than halfway to get most things done, and it's a good lesson that games teaches you.
Yeah, you've got to assert your will and Risk. If you don't want to win, you're not going to win.
1000%.
Tell me, guys, a little bit about yourselves so that everybody that's joining us today gets an idea of y'all's journey and what you guys are about. Richard, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, absolutely. Richard here. I was born in Turkey, so don't let the name fool you. Customer success manager and solution engineer here at SOCRadar. I'm one of the first employees where I work as well. I'm coming from a cyber fraud background. So before this, I used to click all the shit on the internet to understand what is good, what is not good. That was my job. That was my intro into cyber world. And here, I got the chance to see what's going on in dark web, especially because that's like the focus in SOCRadar. And excited to work and serve our customers. So I onboard them. I provide like guidance, do CTI analysis for them. Pretty exciting work, really.
That's awesome, man. Throughout your career, what's been the most exciting thing that you've gotten to work on?
With some named customers, when they were going through a breach, they had to rely on us. Like they're thinking, okay, we're going through some painful moments. What can you tell us? So in their moment of darkness, it was really good to be able to dig something up and provide them some guidance. I love those kind of moments. You pull something from the hat, and it just sheds light on what's going on. That kind of feeling I love, really.
That's awesome. It looks like you've got some family that's joining you. Do you and your daughter have a favorite pizza? Favorite type of pizza?
Cheese pizza. Regular cheese is fine. She was picking up her T-shirts.
She was trying to get screen time. I saw how excited. I saw her eyeing the screen. She knew what she was doing.
She was going to say something, but I'm like, offhand.
No, it's great. It's great. I love that. She would win in a game of Risk, man. She knows how to get on screen.
Yeah, it's school dismissal time. They were gonna invade my office and play games, so I invaded their bedroom, and now they're invading it back.
I love it. They just want to be around you, man. All right, Braden, you're up. Give us the scoop.
Wow, I appreciate it and humbled to be here. Hopefully we can, be insightful and also have a good time. I don't know, when I think about myself or when other people have described me, I think it speaks a lot to the role that I'm in today and why I do what I do, which is that I am hyper competitive. And I'm silent about it. So unless you really know me, you don't know how competitive I am. And I think that what that has led me to is just being hyper aware of anything and everything. Specifically, that leads me to loving behavioral psychology, and having studied that in business at the same time. And what do you do with a business and a behavioral psychology degree? Unless you want to become a psychologist, you go into sales. And you love solving problems and you love talking to people. And so I've done that for the last almost 15 years of my career. And the last 7 or so of that have been specific to cybersecurity. Before that was, come from hardware. I have a couple gaming computers around here, some, older technology, and I just like tearing things apart and putting it back together. And so, yeah, I'm lucky that technology and hardware kind of tripped into software in this cybersecurity complex or problem that we have today. So I don't know. I'm excited to just be a part of it.
That's awesome, man. What kind of games do you dive in on those hardwares? I know you like Risk, so you're a competitive strategy guy.
Yeah, I'm a little bit basic in the games that I do enjoy, but it is hyper competitive. So Warzone is absolutely the video game that I'm playing right now. It's a Call of Duty game, and it's 40 different teams of 4 to 5 players drop in, and it's the last one standing. And
oh yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a battle royale type of a game.
Pizza topping, and then we'll go into insightfulness. Do you have a favorite?
Let's see. Basil maybe the best, just to go.
Okay.
You just really stumped him on that, Zach.
I really
came up with a good answer. Came up with a really unique one. Well, we're really excited to have you guys today. I think it's going to be an awesome conversation. And Matt, why don't you jump into some awesome educational stuff?
Yeah. So today's SOCRadar day, but it's also SOC 2 day. Not really related, but they rhyme. All right, let's jump in.
They do rhyme.
What is SOC 2? If any of you out there have ever interacted with an organization of financial services, you've probably heard the word SOC 2. Maybe you've heard SOC 1 too. The AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, has copyright, and I'm pointing out the copyright on SOC 2. They also have this thing called the trust services criteria. That part's open, and anyone in the industry can use that. But the copyright's important because SOC 2 is the brand of security audit that the CPA industry is running, and that brand's been built up over I think close to 15 years at this point. It's almost ubiquitous in the financial services industry to the point that some people don't realize it's not a government requirement. I think from different places in the financial services sector, people equate SOC 2 with good security, and if you don't have SOC 2, you don't have good security. I think the world's a lot more nuanced than that, and so today we're gonna dig in and talk about, well, what is this SOC 2 thing? How is it different than other security standards? So I'm going to dig right into the technical underpinnings here. So SOC 2 is built on the Trust Services Criteria, TSC. TSC 2023 came out last year. That was the first update in a few years. It was preceded by TSC 2017. So they do update this every few years. Not a lot of changes. Roughly the same framework with technology changes, a few pivots. So there's these different profiles in SOC 2. But before I talk about those, let's just talk about what do you use a SOC 2 for? A SOC 2, unlike some security standards that might be around the whole organization, SOC 2 is always scoped to a specific thing. Now, in your SOC 2 statement, you could say the whole organization. But what most organizations do to make the SOC 2 process easier and frankly cheaper is they draw a box around stuff that they really care about. For example, systems that customers might interact with. Um, and they say, well, this is our SOC 2 boundary, or they might draw that line around critical business services, right? Say anything that touches these critical, important business services are going to be under SOC 2 scope. The reason I'm pointing that out is while it's relatively easy for an organization, in terms of achievement to go buy a SOC 2 report. All you got to do is show up to a CPA office that does SOC 2s and say, and plunk over some cash and say, come do a report on SOC 2. It's hard to look good in that report, particularly when you have expansive scopes. So some organizations really scope down and they're like, oh, this one server is SOC 2 compliant. And some organizations are more expansive because of this fact that the scoping is not uniform from company to company. The value of a SOC 2 is not the same from company to company, and a lot of people in the security world make fun or create memes about this, about the fact that like people have scoped their SOC 2 to like their desk or like one server or like their waste paper basket or something like that. But there's some room here for drawing the boundaries. Once you've drawn those boundaries, you have to decide, well, what are we doing inside that boundary that we're trying to secure? And this is where the profiles come in. So they have a security profile, sometimes known as common criteria. And the reason why it's called common criteria is the other four profiles require it. So every one of the four profiles, if you're trying to apply those to your security, needs to include the common criteria. There's some bullet points here of some examples of what might be in those things. But SOC 2 is pretty outcome based. So it's focused on what do you need to do and what's anything you need to do to achieve an outcome. And the outcomes are aligned with these profiles. So it's availability, and that is that your systems are up and available when you need them. Processing integrity, that the data is believable and has only been modified by authorized individuals. It hasn't been corrupted, etc. Basically, the data quality is good. Confidentiality, the data hasn't been leaked to people who are unauthorized. And privacy, which is similar to confidentiality, but is specific to consumer data and how that's impacted by regulatory frameworks. Conspicuously missing from all of this is human safety, and some security standards are going there. But I'm pointing this out again because not all SOC 2s are equal. Some people will go in and they'll only look at availability, and you might think, well, I only care about confidentiality, and you really need to read that report to know has this vendor, for instance, even guaranteed they're going to keep your data confidential? Have they even been audited on that, or are they only being audited on availability? Here's the common criteria. So these are, it's practices or security functions that have been broken down that are common to all the profiles. So is there a control environment? Are there policies? Have you assessed risk? Are you monitoring the performance of your controls? This is super important in SOC 2. Some other security standards don't require this. SOC 2 is very, very focused on if you've deployed security, can we prove it's working? Okay, not just have you turned something on, right? Is it working? Is it accomplishing the outcome you're trying to accomplish? So that's the common criteria list, and I'm going to cover type 1 and type 2 reports real briefly here. Another thing people sometimes don't understand is there's actually two types of SOC 2 report. So there's a type 1 report and a type 2 report. A type 1 report, and it says here that it's evaluating a company's controls at a single point in time. Also, it is not evaluating the effectiveness of those controls. This is a theoretical thing. An assessor is going to look at the list of security things you say you do, and if you theoretically did all those things and they theoretically worked the way you expected, would the outcome you're looking for, or the outcome you're trying to achieve, actually be obtained? That's a type 1. It's worth noting you don't actually have to implement the security. This is really just an assessment of a plan. Type 2 reports, much, much harder. And that's where you look into, hey, is this security functioning? Is it functioning over time? Is it basically operating correctly? And it's not enough to say it's turned on. For an example, There are security controls out there that say disable user accounts when people don't log in to them for 30 days. So they might look at your history of doing that over a year and say, well, did you actually do this throughout the year when that person ticked over 30 days because they hadn't logged into their account? Or is this something you only did twice a year? So that's the type of thing they might investigate in a SOC 2 report. And whew, I'm through it. I didn't even slow down there. Do you guys have any any SOC 2 anecdotes you want to add?
Oh, I'd throw something out there. You talked about it being you alluded to the importance of it being either trademarked or whatever. What was the word?
Copywritten.
Copywritten.
Yes.
You alluded to the fact that it was copywritten and that was important. And then you went through a lot of specifics about it.
Yeah, let's circle back.
Yeah, circle back to that for me, because I think this is my favorite point in relation to all of the standards and frameworks, is how what the focus is of it, and this one is on money.
So not only is it copywritten, like the content of some of the standard is copywritten, but it's also trademarked. Okay. You are not allowed to use for example, the SOC 2 logo on your website if you haven't actually received a SOC 2 report. You are, as an assessor, you're not even allowed to deliver a SOC 2 report or a SOC 2 audit unless you're at a firm that has a CPA partner, right, that's overseeing what you're doing and stamping their signature on the report. So that's really important to know. And a lot of our customers in our target segment are service providers, and they are not CPAs, although some of them are. And for all of those service providers that are not CPAs, while you can deliver a trust services criteria pre-assessment report to help a customer understand SOC 2 readiness, you can do that as a service provider, and lots of people do it. In fact, there are some big companies out there that will tell you they're going to help you get a SOC 2 report, and they're actually lying. They're not helping you get a SOC 2 report because they don't have CPAs. But what they're doing is they're helping you assess and get ready. And actually, that's against the terms of the trademark. Enforcement's a little lax by the AICPA. But it's really important to note that most service providers can't, doesn't matter how smart you are, issue SOC 2 reports. All you can do is help your customer get there. That said, while CPAs charge a lot of money for these reports, the nicer place in the equation to be is the person building the security and getting your customer ready. It might be months and months and months of work to build a security castle, right? And really just a small engagement of a couple of days for a CPA to come look over your shoulder and see how well that castle's working. So it's not a bad place to be in SOC 2 prep. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right.
Let's do the fun stuff.
Yeah, it is fun. We were talking with some partners on our peer success call this morning, and we just oh, by the way, we're talking with these guys in the webinar later about the dark web, and it turned into a 30-minute dark web journey with our group. But the emphasis of, or I guess a summary of where we were at in that conversation is that people have these impressions about what the dark web is and what it's useful for and what it's not useful for, and almost universally people are uninformed. So that's what we're here to do today, is talk about, hey, what is this thing and how is it useful? How can it provide value to organizations that are trying to build security resilience? So I don't know who wants to take that one, Richard or Braden. But...
Yeah, go ahead and get started the conversation. There's another parallel term that we keep hearing, deep web, as well. And there are some really formal definitions of what these are. Basically, if something is not available in Google, it's usually called a deep web. And if you're not able to directly access it from your browser, those are usually tend to be called dark web. Maybe they are gated, maybe they require a Tor browser. What we understand in digital risk industry, when you say dark web, is usually in threefold. One, the forums, where people buy and sell stuff, and they usually are accessible from a browser. Actually, you can fire up your Edge, Chrome, go to one of these well-known places, start an account, pay a few $100, become a shiny member, and start transacting. Buying, selling, purchasing. So that's one place. The other one is very, very accessible. Telegram, the hacker chat channels. It's a very accessible place. You just need a number, and if you install it, you're supposed to talk to your family in Russia, but you can also create nefarious channels where you dump gigabytes of data stolen from different computers. All you need to do, if you're a security researcher, is just to type the word stealer log, for example, or Combo list, and you're going to see all these channels dumping that information on a daily basis. It's really, really easy to get to. And lastly, there is the market aspect of it. And there are specific markets, usually called bot markets. There are two well-known ones. One is the Russian bot market, and their address is russianmarket.to. You create a login, you go in there, and you see all the stolen computer information from across the world, from people who have some sort of a Trojan infection going on in their computers. They sell credit cards that way as well. There are specific credit card shops that sell stolen credit cards. And then there used to be Genesis Market. I think it's shut down now. It comes back up sometimes. They also sell credentials, stolen credentials from Trojan infected computers. So that's what we understand from deep and dark web in general when you use these terms: forums, Telegram, and the so-called transactional specific automated bot markets.
And this changes a lot, right? Like, this is sort of a rolling, mutating world.
It is. Forums are shut down. Sometimes you wake up, you go to your favorite place, it says domain seized by FBI, ICE, and some other people. And the next day, they open up a new one. And ransomware operators, for example, they have their own, which I forgot to mention. They have their own blogs, accessible only by Tor. It is actually not hard to find them. You can even sometimes Google, tell me where Lockbit is, and someone will give you their Tor address. I mean, once you go there, you're gonna see what they advertise, and even then they are shut down sometimes. And then they get into argument with the FBI. Hey, actually, they weren't able to seize us. Something happened. We are available at this address. So sometimes I really forget their names. For example, breach forums. It used to be breach forums. Now they become breach.to. They become breach.vc. And we ran out of names, really. It's just really hard to catch up with all this.
Having Richard on the team is incredible because we can go so deep so fast. I think that when I think about the deep, the dark, the surface web, and even surface threats, especially pertaining to our conversation, I keep it a little bit more simple. I like to think about the ocean just hanging out in front of me, right? Whatever's shimmering and looking back at me on top, whatever you can see when you're flying over. That's the surface web. That's the social media, news, websites, online stores, everything that we interact with throughout the day. Once you dive underneath the surface, that's when you're in the deep web. And if you want to get to the dark web, to Richard's point, you need to be able to get there. You need to be able to not just go to the deep web, but have the right, albeit tools, logins, whatever, to get to the deep web. And I think about, dark web. And I think about that as having a submarine that can just kind of take you there, right? And take you to exactly where you want to go. So I like to keep it a little bit more simple, like I'm hanging out on the beach, but it's a little scarier.
Well, my favorite part about Richard's story is that he clearly has favorite places on the dark web, even though he's not. We're all presuming not a criminal, right? So that's fun. But Jens brings up a think we're trying to make a point here, right? Like these aren't necessarily places that are safe for people to go, like just tool around, right?
Okay, so this is a very good question. By itself, you're not going to be victim of a drive-by download or something like that. You're not going to be hacked because you visited them. Of course, you need some operational security, especially if you connect from a Tor browser that gives you good anonymity. And so it's not by itself something dangerous to do. Although, if your computer is somehow confiscated, if you think you have some explaining to do, why are you visiting RussianMarket.to? I have a cover because of work. I am visiting these places. So I don't think it's a problem to visit them. Forums also, you can even create accounts and start observing what's going on. I mean, they're not going to drop like some file into your computer or mark where you live. FBI is not going to, I don't think, break your door. I'm hoping they haven't done to me yet. So, and I'll blame our CEO.
Well, we're here in the U.S. We're lucky to be safe, but I think there are some places in the world where if you log on to these networks, it doesn't even matter what you do on them. It can be dangerous for you.
Right.
What's the difference between deep and dark, and what makes it dark, and why did they name it dark?
I think the main difference is for deep web, when you do a Google search, it's not indexed. So it's like a mountain of information sitting somewhere. You have to know the source and you have to go there directly. When you say dark, the extra like tint there is you probably need some like Tor-like browser to be even able to go there. Normal DNS servers may not even find them. For example, ransomware operators, you cannot connect to them from your regular browser because DNS do not have their addresses. It's only Tor, peer-to-peer network type of access. Some other places we call dark web, like these gated places, easy to access really, but because of the activity that's been happening, is probably called dark web. The Russian market, for example, easy to go, easy to create an account, easy to purchase stuff, but still called a dark web. It's giving this aura, like mystery. It's not really.
And a way that I look to kind of answer that same question is, sticking with the oceanic theme, apparently, icebergs, right? So the majority of the deep web is, as we know, the majority of an iceberg is underwater, but the deep web, to be specific, it's databases, it's private networks. Most of us probably get into what would be considered the deep web just by, using intranets, things like that. And so, different password protected sites, that's really all that the deep web is. And as we know, it's like 85 or 90% plus of what is on the internet. Dark web, it's two things: notorious for being a haven for like illegal activities, mainly because of anonymity. But it's also a really important place when it comes to activism. Wow, that was hard for me to say for some reason. Privacy protection, and the way that I understand that the dark web and the deep web really came to light was actually from intelligence and coming from a good place, from keeping secrets, but still a good place.
Yeah, we talked about that this morning, how the U.S. Navy actually stumped up money for the initial research that led to Tor. Specifically for activists, but also, of course, their intelligence operatives, and to hide among thieves, I guess, which is a funny way to put it. But there is important value there, but that's not the only value, right? Because I think keeping an eye out on the dark web is now like a way to sort of understand, like, it's another way of understanding if something bad has happened in your organization, right? Or in other organizations that you interact with, right?
100%. So that brings up two things that are top of mind for me. We obviously talked about SOC 2 Type 2. I wouldn't go so far as to say like dark web is absolutely directly going to be a part of that, but it certainly is going to inform your risk assessment. It's certainly going to inform what that 3 to 12 month period that's trailing of what you're doing, and actually looking at, the levels of security in practice. When it comes to preventative and detective controls in regards to, SOC certifications, just being able to, monitor and serve as a detective control, both by like identifying instances of compromised data, but also, it can also be, a countermeasure and a preventative measure to push the opposite direction by allowing, organizations to mitigate those risks before they do result in some sort of a significant harm. So one thought is how that does inform, SOC 2, but then also to kind of lean into the topic of conversation today, being able to understand what might be the risk level for someone else, right? If we are an organization that's managing risk on behalf of our clients, being able to help guide them, help them understand what exposed data or credentials are going to be out there, because there's going to be information out there, whether it's from their personal lives, whether it's from their business lives. There's information on the dark web, or deep web, I should say.
I want to add something to what Braden is saying here.
Yeah.
I was in a client meeting where they said, dark web, what are we going to have in dark web? We're not involved with the government. And this was from a security professional. Very surprising. Again, when you say dark web, it's that mystery. But the thing is, each and every one of us kids, which one of them was in my background, and they're playing games. And when they play games, they click on stuff, and that stuff usually downloads a Trojan, and that Trojan extracts all your session cookies, all your credentials from your computer, and sells it in the market. So today, if I go to the Russian market, you can name me a major company, and I can show you a login to their one of login pages. It could be their customers, it could be their staff, it could be their VPN. So there's something for everybody, from small guy to the big guy.
Well, thank God they're not. Thank God they're not discriminating.
I feel like Richard's doing their marketing team a plus here, but it's worth noting. Like I've of course looked myself up on the dark web, right? Not myself. I'm not going out into these forums, right? No, I'm just
doing
for sale? Search. And of course I am. I'm for sale through like 30 more or platforms or more. Yeah. Now I have to go through that list and manicure it and be like, is this something that I need to care about? And I have to look, and like MySpace got hacked like 20 years ago, and like the data is still out there, and some people are using the same passwords for 20 years straight. Exactly. Or they stop using the password for 8 years, and then they start using it again. Well, guess what? The dark web doesn't forget that you used that password 20 years ago.
That's true. But it's so true. And I think that what makes that even more pertinent to our lives, right, is it's 85+% of people are using the same password at home as they are at work. So you build your fortress however strong you want. You also you do need to be aware of what is out there and help that inform how you behave. Because if you see, your Matthew 1, 2, 3 exclamation point, you're using that at home.
How does he know your password? You're just telling people?
He's searching the dark web. I'm doing it right now.
That's funny.
Yeah, and it just the back and forth of using those passwords. You're so right. I mean, and one of the reasons that I love cybersecurity is the behavioral psychology, like I mentioned before, and being able to see what's on the dark web, and then also like starting to marry that with like why threat actors do what they do. It's just such an intriguing topic, not to go into it, but humans are humans, and they do things for simple reasons. And normally, if you give somebody on the dark web a little nod, and they give them some credit, they're actually probably willing to help you out, which is really interesting. I think that
they want community too.
Absolutely. Through, and Richard, you might be able to speak better on that, but you
may be able to hoard some of them together, Richard. It sounds like
it's almost like an industrial complex where bad guys and good guys are feeding each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. And here's a dilemma. So at some point, I think even the law enforcement needs these places to exist, because you need to be able to see what is being what's going on. So these major forums, they never die. They always make a comeback. At times, their founders are arrested, and they turn out to be teenagers in London. I mean, there were cases like that too. But they always come back into operation. If you look at the modern threat landscape, which is a very common term nowadays, right? Threat landscape. If you look at how an organization is hacked, usually there are 3 or 4 attack vectors, right? One is you're running on some vulnerable application like Microsoft Exchange, and this happens all the time. Like Citrix, Fortinet is going through one nowadays, and they get you that way. Or you're exposing RDP, which is a little rare, but it happens. Some remote desktop protocol type of software is open to the internet. They try a password and it works. Or phishing emails, that's also great too. But we're seeing an increase in, and threat actors, sometimes they leave notes. I wish it was handy that I could show you.
In the code?
When they're done, you have a note in your computer. They say, this is how we hack you. We went onto the market, a bot market, and purchased for $10 a login. And usually, those logins have session cookies, which can help them bypass a two-factor authentication in place. This is called an account takeover, and we are seeing this increasingly happening in the attacks. The MGM attack, for example, there was an account takeover in that attack as well. They tried or obtained passwords, and then they bypassed 2FA by tiring the person who's holding the phone, pushing, no. They finally push yes, because it's asking, is it you logging in? No, damn it, yes, damn it. And then they are there.
I've seen some interesting, like some of the North Korean nation state actors, right? They're putting different like K-pop names into their code. They're putting different calls. I mean, you can tell who it is. They want people to figure it out. They're not doing it for no reason.
Well, and then there's the false flags, right? So that's
a good point.
Sometimes people are taking credit or on behalf of others, right?
Which is interesting. And we've seen like how now the threat actors will also go and take their data that they have on the dark web to, say, the SEC and go, look, we really did hack that company. They can either pay you or they can pay us,
So what's state of the industry for usability here? I mean, clearly, like, I don't have time to go crawl around the dark web. I know there's some new features in Google Password Manager and some other password managers where, like, it's checking, like, the password you just saved, has this been leaked someplace? But that's not enough to build a cybersecurity surveillance capability out of. So,
I would like to take that, because I think that this space has a bad rap. I think that threat intelligence, to use the buzzword, dark web threat intelligence, especially, which is really just correlated information, right? Cyber threat intelligence, that's all the information you could ever want. Dark web, more specific information. Like, either that data is always old and outdated, like when your Chase emails you or somebody emails you and goes, hey, your password might be out there. It's like, that's not a password I've ever even used. So like, I feel like that lowers the value of what is out there to the common person. But I also think that those that have gone deep into this topic have spent a lot of money on these types of tools and not gotten a lot out of it. And so it's like, okay, if all that data is out there, what do? You get it. That's what you can do. Instead of just being there to comb through it, you get it. And you can, those are things that you can automate. You can say, hey, if something's up on the dark web, or even if there's a phishing website out there that somebody's trying to use to socially engineer your website, don't be aware of it, or don't get all the tools that you need to become aware of it. You can just go and take it down. You can partner or work with some of the right people that go, hey, anytime something's on the dark web, you're going to be the first one to know what that information is and how it could be used against you. And so it's marrying that information with actually doing something about it, not just giving that information.
Zach, Braden just said your favorite thing, which is actually doing something.
I do love action.
So like people have a lot of tools, right? And they just like turn them on and then they forget about them. But this is part of an operational security capability, right?
Yeah. And again, it's like, people spend a ton of money going, I want all these different threat intelligence feeds. Give me all of this information to tell me where something is, instead of just taking that something out of the puzzle, right? You just take that piece out of the puzzle, and that puzzle's not going to get completed. And so, yeah, it's interesting, but that comes with understanding of every new topic, right? Like dark web is overwhelming to those that are deep into it, let alone, myself being a simple salesperson, if I can. But I also think that
you're at least a complex salesperson. At the very least.
Yeah, we know at least competitive. And I think that we've understood enough that it's not just holy crap what's in front of us, but it's like now we're at the top of the mountain, and it's like let's do something about it. We fully understand this. Let's do something. And so if you marry something like an MDR tool that's going to stop something after intrusion, but then you're also like exploring not just how to know what is out there, to use the term left of boom, instead of right. It's like you can actually just start to pull those possible threats down and really start to reduce your risk, to bring it back to a SOC 2 type of a conversation.
Yeah. Whew. I feel like I want to take an afternoon cruise on the dark web now.
You come to the right place. Let me open up my shop. I am logged in. Which type of logins would you like today, sir? Credit cards, logins?
Richard built a submarine for that. If you'd like to navigate specifically to Tor, or navigate those murky, complex waters, I think that there's ways to do that with anonymity and privacy, and like we talked about, there's noble causes out there too. So let's not be scared of it, but let's enjoy it and embrace it. And when you give something a nod, and you shine a light on it, it kind of gets rid of the shadows to some extent. So.
Yeah.
So Zach, was it you that were mentioning that it was interesting that you end up with security people doing good, like mixing in these places with the evildoers? And
yeah, I just the narrative about the dark web is not positive in the everyday person. Not maybe in the tech community, it's more known. But in the community that I come from, not the community that I'm a part of now, the knowledge about it is much different. It's a lot. The brand is off.
I've got a pitch for you then, okay? And by the way, I own no guns, but I respect the ability to own a gun in the United States, for any number of reasons. And I've been donating on and off to the Electronic Frontiers Foundation for probably 25, 30 years. Geez. And they've been fighting this battle since the early 90s, really, to make sure the US did not outlaw the technology that allows the dark web to exist, because there are use cases that are necessary for society. And I think that there's a bit of I think there's a necessary relief valve there in the world for if the powers that be decided to get a little too strong in our ability to move information around, right, to inform each other. And I think the dark web needs to continue to exist to fulfill that societal function. But if it didn't exist, let me tell you, all this swapping would just happen someplace else. Okay,
right?
It is. If anything, it's gathered it together in a place where we can perform surveillance.
And that will be your dark web, and we'll be there too. So,
yeah, there's fun things with the dark web too. I mean, there's some gaming companies out there, and instead of trying to desperately defend themselves somehow, they can just get rid of those websites that might be selling hacks to their game. And I mean, just like keep your enemies closer. It's never going to be more true than in the dark web, right? I think that recently we saw about $1 billion software company. They had a breach. They had data exfiltrated, and they thought that it was an advanced persistent threat. Somebody really targeted them and went after them. And while it's true that somebody targeted them and went after them, with the dark web married with the surface web, and only when you look at both of them together were you able to figure it out, and really only with human intelligence too to actually go through and figure it out. What the result of that breach was that there was a disgruntled employee who had a roommate who like to hack, right? That's all it can take is somebody that's trusted and good on the inside, being that close to somebody on the outside. But again, the only thing that revealed that relationship to us and allowed that $1 billion business to start to move forward from this, breach that they suffered was being in the know, not turning your back on it, looking at all of the evidence that's in front of us, and not being biased to it, but looking at it as good information, and being intelligent with it and being a critical thinker. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that it can be both an avenue for bad, but it also really brings it all back together. It's one of those convex places that's just so important.
Well, I love that story of redirecting someone to dig a trench on the correct side of the castle. When they're out there, like, thinking about, like, the forward-facing security to the outside, and, oh, it's just an insider. And which means that they need to do something about insiders, clearly, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that the flip of that coin can happen so fast, and I think that's kind of where we are in security too. We have such a crazy defense stack these days, and we're just starting to really get into the proactive piece and start to take away what a threat actor could use against you. And it's just kind of one of those flips of the coins where you really have to be focused and you really have to be on it, and pulling what is actually important out of all of that instead of getting lost in it, which is the really hard thing. So
Zach, what are you thinking here? I feel
I'm informed.
I feel like I just got a refresher.
I feel like I've learned so much that I when you don't know how much you don't know. Now I know how much I don't know. So
here's something I learned. We're all wearing dark shirts, guys.
Yeah, that's me.
And he's got the hood.
Like the threat actor on everybody's website, right? It's just us, the good guys.
All right, Mr. Robot. Well, should we do a round of takeaways and get everybody to their weekend?
Let's do it.
Or do you have other thoughts you want to kick around?
Look, I'm gonna throw something out there. Like, clearly, like, I'm not hiding under a rock. I'm in the security world, and I'm aware of what goes on in Telegram. But to hear, to hear where you listed, hey, these places where things are happening, right? Yeah, it's right in consumer apps, right? That people are using, right? Everyday people are using these apps, right? And it's right there. It's right there, right? It's available.
I mean, you talk to your grandma from this app, overseas, but at the same time, you can subscribe to Hacker Channel and get some credentials to yourself.
And that's you get grandma in there and teach her some things.
That's what
you're working on some projects.
Like when you look at, like, say a hacker, like the hacker timeline, or like the Lockheed Martin kill chain is probably the best thing, but like the weaponization and the recon at the beginning, normally that part's ignored. The dark web, the deep web, like that's where that reconnaissance is, where somebody can go and find the info. But when they're getting ready to use that information, it's in Telegram. It's like, why would you not be a little bit more private with that, in a sense? And that's just because people don't look. So why try harder to hide it? I mean, it's really right there at the tips of our fingers. And that's where we see the most, like, info stealers and stealer logs coming from, is from Telegram.
What is overwhelming to me is, guys, this information is coming in tons. So today, as a security professional, if you were to go to the channels that I direct you to go just to see what is going on, you'd be overwhelmed. I mean, you wouldn't have enough storage in your computer to download this amount of data, parse it, look it up. There is just an ocean of stealer logs data out there. So much so that you need a processor like us to constantly pull that data, look it up, create searchable stuff, search it, and find it. It's just too much to deal with at a personal level, really.
Every time they say Steeler logs, I'm getting pumped up for the NFL 2024 season.
Hey, if Steeler logs were that fun and they fit into that, we probably wouldn't be so concerned about them. But
they're concerned about them. Don't you worry. You should see the offseason they're having.
I don't know anything about them individually.
It's just nonsense. I'm just saying nonsense.
It's so over my head. It's not.
It's just nonsense.
And here's, I grew up like, enjoying sports, and now it's just
Yeah, no, I get it.
being grown up's not that fun anymore, huh?
No. Well, it's tough to make time to watch other people live life, So.
There's an NCAA game that's coming through the Capital Region here. I think it's a Final Four game, and I don't watch basketball, but I know that that's a big deal. So I go to my son who's into basketball. I'm like, "Do you want to go see the game?" He's like, "Well, what team's playing?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, don't you want to go see basketball?" He's like, "I don't know. Depends on who's there." Like,
That's interesting. I mean, it's going to be one of the best 4 teams. I don't know if that piques your interest.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Although I saw, what was it, yesterday, only 15% of brackets were left after a couple upsets, right? First game out of the gate. So, all those brackets out there, only 15% exist still. So I guess who knows what team's going to be in the Final Four?
One of them for sure.
Maybe 4.
At least one. Yeah.
I'm going to go with 4.
You got a takeaway, Zach?
I think, well, my takeaway is it's not as bad as it sounds, and it can be useful.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant with that, but I'll allow it. I think.
Well, it's going to exist no matter what, right?
I didn't say I didn't want it to exist. I just, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't like wasps either, but I'm not saying we should get rid of them. Just off my deck.
All right. Well, I'm going to do our quick pitch. We're a security planning, sales, service delivery, and evidencing tool for security providers that are trying to deliver more cybersecurity services. But let's hear from you guys. What are you doing that's sort of special in this space? Give us the real plug, man.
The real plug is that you can truly be actionable when everybody just ruined that word in the past. And there are organizations, SOCRadar,
truly are actionable, because I think we've butchered both of those over the past.
truly actionable. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to start using double negatives to, I guess, make that even make sense, because we've used those terms. But SOCRadar provides actionable threat intelligence, and we do that with an early warning system. And it's something that is traditionally been a 6-figure resale, but it's become democratized. It's something that can be put into services and really empower an MSP or MSSP to go proactive and reduce all of the costs within their business, because they're not spending so much on IR, they're not spending so much on their analysts, and really they're starting to get ahead of things and burn the candle on both ends. Interesting time for the plumbers, the emergency plumbers, to show up, but sometimes
there's never a better time than now for the emergency plumbers to arrive.
I was thinking that there's never a bad time for an emergency plumbing job.
It's a weird thing to say out loud.
Well, Richard, you want to give us one more happy takeaway before we allow the plumbers to take us out?
Zach, I agree with you. It's not all that bad. I kind of highlighted the negatives first, like it's overwhelming, too much data. But the silver lining is it's available to us as well. There are good people looking for it. There's support available. So in fact, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's good that it's not totally hidden. Some of it is available to us, so we shouldn't worry.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'm really grateful that you guys joined us today. This is an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm hopeful that everybody has a fantastic weekend. I'm also hopeful that folks join us next week for a conversation with Henry Zhang and Zach Kromkowski around baseline hardening with CIS benchmarks. We love CIS. We also love benchmarks. And we also love those two gentlemen. And we also love these two gentlemen and all the folks that joined us today, you guys as well. So have a great weekend. Looking forward to seeing everybody again next week. And enjoy the spring as it comes in, if you're in that part of the world.
Stay in the surface web. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Humble a bit.